Thank you very much, gentlemen.
That's right.
That was good. All right, actually, Ned. I've got a stinking cold. You wouldn't know it, would
Do
you?
you know how much I've been gagging for a beer? I've been in this country 2 hours and I haven't touched any alcohol. And I'm talking to you folk.
Is this going to go on the director's cut of the podcast?
And all I can see are these beer signs and people walking past me with beers. And I'm here sucking tunes as I've got sore throat. Sunglasses on. It's like 30 degrees. And I'm starting to feel like
I find it implausible to believe that anybody would think of you in those terms, and you look devastatingly handsome in those glasses.
Well,
because of a foul up, which I have to take responsibility for, only one person could be in charge. Unfortunately, you drew the short straw. It was me. Chris, tell us where you are again briefly, because we weren't recording.
I have arrived within the last hour in Paphos in Cyprus, but my commitment to you, H, and to you, Tony, means I wasn't going to miss this debrief and also self-help session.
Yeah, well, this is as I was saying, this is the slaughter, the carve up, the bloodletting session, and boy oh boy, it's just been so tough. And as I was saying, I've got to stop using that phrase again. But as I was saying, is that there seems to be no black and white, no colours in between the black and white. It's either Levy's a psychopath and we're going in the wrong direction, and that's been the same way for wrong end of a quarter of a century, or you don't know what you're looking at. We just need more time. Let's back the manager. I'm not seeing anything. That's giving me much hope. I think the best thing to progress from here is to look at the players we've got, because I'll be honest with you, I went through the stats this morning, and that is, when you're in trouble when you stare at the stats and nothing really comes back. There's nothing to kind of feed your brain and to suggest a narrative, because the reality is we know what the score was. We watched the game, and people with their own agendas, and you're allowed to say that, just like you're allowed to have an opinion, are telling you that you didn't see it right, that there's lots to be positive about, and I'm struggling. And the reason I'm struggling is because I just don't think the quality is there in the players. Nobody's making big, huge mistakes, but there just isn't that finesse at that level.
So I had 4.5 hours to myself earlier, and
are we old enough to hear this?
As I departed from gracious Luton, I started thinking about Tottenham, and I started thinking about the weekend. And the first thing that came to my mind, Tony, was we signed a player from Burnley who were relegated. We signed a £45 million winger stroke forward from Nottingham Forest. We get a central midfielder from Leicester who had been relegated. All of our recent acquisitions and player recruitment comes from clubs that are not going to raise the profile of this club, and we're not buying top-class internationals. Or you think it's only 3 or 4 years ago that we had the likes of Gareth Bale at the club, well, a lot longer, but Gareth Bale, and we had Luka Modric, and we had Aaron Lennon, and we used to Rafael van der Vaart, Harry Kane. But in a short period of time, we've rescinded so badly that our recent recruitment's been absolutely rubbish. We're signing junk that's not fit for purpose.
Tony, what did you think of the players? What did you think, I mean, in that game, but just generally, and looking back at the window, where do you think we are?
Well, first thing I saw when I looked at the team sheet, I saw Johnson on there. My heart literally sank, because I thought, here we go. We're not going to get any balls into the area, are we? The boy just doesn't know how to shoot, how to cross. For somebody who's supposed to be worth 45 million, I would be expecting a little bit of end product, even if it's a little bit haphazard occasionally. But yeah, it just looks to me, when you look at the team sheet, you see 1 or 2 players, you think, okay, good, they're there. Van der Ven, I think I feel sorry for Van der Ven, if I'm honest. If I'm him, I must be thinking, I'm a Rolls Royce sitting I'm a Rolls Royce sitting in a team full of larders. It's just ridiculous. Honestly, I just look at that team and I think, I agree with what you said there, Chris, and it was kind of on my mind as well, is that it's like bargain basement sort of buyers, isn't it? We go, on paper it looks good. You look at our team, it's so paper thin, and then by the time you get to the replacements or the Timo Werners who can really make an impact, you look at it, it's basically people who've just come either nobodies or people who are just getting out of puberty, and it's just ridiculous. you look at the team now, and we're what, 13th? I think we're 13th, and we are a team that we're on. When you look at that team on paper, that team doesn't look anything special.
Well, that's a relegation battle, that side is, because
Yeah.
there's plenty of teams that have worked us out and will continue to do so. But you look at the alleged way the club was purported to be heading to us in the summer. We go with youth. Yeah, Bergvall and Archie Gray. How many minutes have they played between them? It's just rinse and repeat with those same old midfield combination. And it's perfectly clear to all of us that we're crying out for central midfielder. But we continue to ask our existing cohort to take turns of trying to fulfil that role. None of them are good enough.
What I find peculiar, or rather particularly damning, is there's this perfect storm, and I'm allowed to say it. I mean, I'm allowed to say it. I don't think he's up to the task, this guy. He was third, possibly fourth, might have even been fifth choice, based upon what was in the newspapers at the time. I don't buy it that he was sought out because of this spectacular Ange ball nonsense, and that's another conversation which doesn't take very long to play out. Because what is Ange ball? I think
Doesn't exist.
no, I think absolutely. I think it's Father Christmas, and I think if you stay up late enough and you keep one eye open, you'll see your mum and your dad slipping stuff at the foot of your bed in the night. I think it's absolute fantasy. He's said that interview, which was before the game. I thought that was rather telling. So I've got a bit of a cold if I'm sounding a bit snurty, but he had an interview with some woman before the game. I think he was quite right to be short with her. She did one of those sort of BBC questions, which starts off like that and then goes like that and then goes like that. And he sort of said, "Well, if you finish asking me the question, I can give you an answer." And then he snarled at her, and it was a snarl, where he put his foot down and said, "No, I have always won in my second season." And the reality of that is that he's won the Heroin Cup and the pot noodle plate in leagues which are not worth discussing, not worth putting on your CV. When we had coaches with stellar CVs, no two ways about it. You might not like them as an individual, boo-hoo, but as managers, they were from the cream of the crop. No two ways about it. And they weren't popular. I get that, but I think that this is largely down to the fact that the fan base has been groomed, and there's no other word for it, by Levy. That you've got people who are applauding mediocrity, and you've got people who are dancing around in front of buskers. I never thought I keep on referring back to this in conversation because I never thought I'd see it in my entire damn life. You've got people standing on a bar stool going, "Hey, hey," with the monkeys, but with like the name of a player inserted. And I actually find it disgusting. To me, as a grown-up, as an adult, as somebody who has lived half a life, living his best life as a Spurs fan, I find it demeaning, absolutely insulting that would be put on in the stadium. It just breaks my mind. But that is the infantilization of the entire process at Spurs, and people are, to my mind, cheering race car tracks. They're going to be opened up. But the deal with Postecoglou is that he says to this woman, "I've won wherever I've been in my second season," and I think that's the problem. He has no sense of awareness, no cognizance of his surroundings, and I don't think he understands the intense pressure. I got a message from a mate of mine who's a gooner who watched it last night, yesterday, and he sent me a message saying that he looks like he's one pack of Benson Hedges away from a Connery. He looks absolutely. I mean, he doesn't look well. He's staring at his feet. You've got the coughing thing. And he's totally inflexible, totally intolerable when it comes to even answering questions about set coach, piece play and all that sort of stuff. And we keep on, as you say, rinse and repeat, keep on experiencing the same indicators of failure. And I'm just looking at the players. And I think the business about the youth players, which was, again, something it was pitched to us that this was going to be this, brave new dawn. We got Vicario, who's a novice. I got particularly irritated with him wandering around shouting at people. I don't think he's earned that yet. I really don't. I thought his dressing down of Bergvall recently sucked badly. Romero, same as Lo Celso, it's country first, then club. And then Udogie and Porro, they're not flat back, left back, and right backs. They're being played out of position. And you can go on. There's problems with just about everybody. Excuse me.
That's a pretty good Ange Postecoglou impression there, H. No eye contact, repeated cough, looking quite queasy and uneasy about things. Well, you.
I'm in my inside. I'm staring at my feet. That's what's happening.
I mean, it's amazing. Yesterday during the game, I couldn't help but sort of think that during the game, how James Maddison has gone from being somebody who could pass a ball to somebody who can only pass a ball sideways. He's become Harry Winks with a bigger price tag, and I don't really understand. That's got to be down to the tactics about what's in front of him, because he must look in front of him and think, who the hell can I pass to that's actually any good? We can actually do something with whatever I do. And it was so obvious.
You look at that side, and I thought to myself, if I was the opposition or another top 6 Premiership club, who would I want out Spurs side? And there's only one person on the pitch, Van de Ven. The rest are absolute cannon fodder, not fit for purpose. So somebody you spoke about earlier, H, who I texted you about the other day, Vicario, we've signed the only goalkeeper who's afraid of crosses. The man is a liability. He can't cover for a cross. He doesn't command his penalty area. You need to be putting your fist through that ball and taking out your centre half and the opposing forwards. But he's just got no confidence. And every time he gets the ball, he waits for the opposition centre forward to close him down, then plays a suicide pass sideways and backwards, and we concede possession. And you're thinking, I've seen it 6 or 7 times on Sunday. What is Ange stood on the touchline observing? It's a joke. He's just not fit for purpose. But we do not have a second choice keeper to push him. So as long as he's fit, his expectation is that he starts every game. And again, that's a problem in the recruitment during the summer.
Are you happy with Vicario, Tony?
He's a good shot stopper, but I wouldn't say he's a commanding goalkeeper who scares the life out of people. We can't. There aren't that many Peter Schmeichels in the world, But you look at somebody like him, he would put the absolute fear of God into attackers. They wouldn't want to come anywhere near him because he bullied that area, and he was absolutely in control of it. And the defence, dare they ever do something wrong? And I know Vicario probably not that same character, and he is a good shot stopper. But if he flaps anymore at corners, he might take off.
I like it, the fact that he's vocal, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure he's earning his wings by screaming at people, because yes, they are making mistakes in front of him, but he's no better himself. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was quite taken aback when I saw him being interviewed by the Cabbage that does the Spurs press stuff on the side of the pitch at the end of the game. He's actually physically quite a commanding character. But you don't see that in his play. He actually looks quite slight. But when you see him there, stood in his post, are you enjoying those chicken wings? What are you having for breakfast, Chris? But when you see him, he's actually quite a physically intimidating sort of size. There's a bit of stature there. But you don't see that when he's actually on the pitch. But the thing that's killing me is the fact that, like I say, we keep on going back to this same old routine. And I mentioned this when I met Chris the other week. You got this business. Sorry, Chris in Malvern near me. You got this mentality that people seem to think, and I don't know where it comes from. If I put a Spurs shirt on somebody, I will kill them.
I know.
It will go from. I think Tony's gone from. But yeah, it's just there seems to be some weird thing that the kit has healing properties, and we get players, and Sonny said it after the game, that we dominated what?
And that's the
who cares? Dominated what? Dominant had a bit of possession in for 15 minutes.
And that's the segue into how bloody bad was Son. I know he's Mother Age is catching up with him, but he was non-existent. He hasn't been for the last 12 months or so.
He's missing Harry, isn't he? Let's face it, because for me, he looks a shadow of himself.
Looks lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he looks absolutely lost, and you've got to look at who's around him. Brennan Johnson today disabled or deactivated, whatever the phrase is, his Instagram account, presumably because people were telling him that he isn't doing a great job. Which shows me that the absence of spine, that a guy can't even take abuse online. And it's hilarious. I looked on a website this morning, a chat room this morning, and people were saying, "Oh, it's all very well if you're down the pub or you're at the game, but to actually seek a player out and tell him what you think of him." These are people who put in for saying, "Oh, I've got mental health issues," when they're asked to do a day's work by their employer. You're picking on me. No, I'm asking you to do what you're paid to do, mate. Not everything is an excuse to curl up in a ball and say, this has to stop. You're being really horrible to me. And I think shouting at a player online, maybe somebody needs to do that. Maybe somebody needs to do that in real life, dare I say it. I'm not talking about attacking the man while he's trying to watch TV with his family. But if somebody says to me, "Oh, well, you saw that thing with Keir Starmer was at the racecourses," and it was impossible to say that certain rude words, one beginning with a W, were being screamed at him by people.
Oh, I thought they were shouting you as an anchor. It wasn't that then.
Yeah, you thought it was a naval.
I thought they were just saying you're an anchor.
But I think
I saw an interview with Postecoglou. Was it just before he came to Spurs? There was a program or something where it was like him behind the scenes with the Socceroos when he was managing them. And there was one at half time where they played really badly and he absolutely ripped them to shreds. And I thought, that's exactly what we need, because we've had too many lightweights. I mean, I know that you can't say Conte and Mourinho are lightweights by any means. But, when they're dealing with substandard players, they're probably thinking, what's the point of me even trying to communicate with these people, because they're just not on my same level. And I thought, okay, good. We've got somebody who doesn't mind giving them a bit of welly, and that hopefully will get them G'd up. But I just don't see it now. And like you say, I think, like you said earlier, I think he just thinks, my God, how long am I going to keep taking this pay packet? Because I can't believe I'm actually here.
Yeah. I mean, the Conte thing, I would just draw attention to as well, because that's a useful name to mention at this juncture in the proceedings, because Conte kept on saying, we need to improve. And what he was actually saying, for those of us of a certain vintage, is that's the nicest thing you can say to somebody who is fundamentally incompetent. So you've got somebody who can't do the job, and you're saying to them, you're just going to have to do as best as you can, Anthony, or whatever. You say to the guy, we just need to improve things around here. And what he's saying is, you need to be somebody else. Either something supernatural has to happen, whereby you become more diligent, more responsible, more useful in the workplace, whatever it might be, quicker, faster, shorter, taller, whatever the missing thing is. But saying to somebody, you need to improve, that's saying you need to move on, because you're not cutting the mustard. This is a job where you need to be brilliant with customers. You look like a scruff bag and you don't communicate well. You need to really have an eye for detail as a surgeon, and you are killing people every time they go into the operating theatre.
Based on that analogy, Levy's probably recruiting 16-year-old spotty blokes who've never come out of their mum's basement.
Yeah, they're probably recruiting for staff in Discord servers. They're looking for people who failed the audition to be lightweights on Reddit forums. But it's just, but the thing that kills me is this: you've got to improve. And I worked in the rag trade for years, and you remember loads of crazy things. I remember one thing this morning, and there was a guy stood there, and he was your archetypal set-upon husband, balding guy in his 50s, and he puts his coat on him, and obviously, it was an expensive. Well, I say obviously, but it was an expensive store, and the woman puts his coat on, and she fell in love with him again. This Mac, this full-length Mac, and she said, "Oh, that looks lovely. Really lovely." And he looked at her, and I just thought he looked suicidal. And he stood there. It's like 3 inches too long in the sleeve. The shoulder seams are down here. It's almost touching the floor. It was the sale. It was the last one. There wasn't a question of giving him the right size. And he just turned around to me and said, "Well, I'm not going to grow into it, am I?" And that's what we've got. We've got players who are wearing clothes that are the wrong fit, and they're not going to grow into it. And where is Bergvall? Somebody mentioned on social media yesterday on X, thought Gray had looked fantastic. And I said, no, he's been okay. We've not seen anything sensational from him. We've not
he's
seen
not been
anything.
given minutes, has he? He's been given 6 or 7 minutes
No,
here or there.
but he doesn't
And
have. But what I would say, if you look at Bergvall, who's been given an equal paucity of minutes, very short period of time, that guy, he just moves the ball around. You go, oh, hello, hello. There's something there. I like the. I don't know what he's doing, but I like that.
And then tell me, would you rather Mikey Moore be given minutes off the bench, or would you rather be given minutes to Timo Werner, who was another cheap offering, doesn't feature in the long-term future of the club, and smells one of the worst signings we've made in a long time?
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, well, Timo comes on, we're saved, aren't we? It's obvious as the day is long. I mean, it comes back to this thing. He didn't succeed at Chelsea. He's not succeeded pretty much everywhere he's been. If I don't see what people saw in him. I just don't see it because it's just not on display. There's nothing there to go, oh, actually, there's something we can work with there. I just don't see it, and I've never seen it.
Neither does his German club that they're practically willing to give him away.
Yeah, I mean, it was Red Bull Leipzig had the guy, and his form went like that, or whatever it is, left to right. Absolute nosedive. His value followed the form. He stopped scoring goals. I don't know what happened to him. Might have been something in his personal life. Boo hoo hoo. Let's all hold, light a bloody candle.
He was like that at Chelsea, though, Ange, wasn't he? He was like that at Chelsea.
He did.
It wasn't like he failed the audition at Chelsea. He didn't get better at Leipzig.
Yeah, the idea that you would bring a player back to a league that he'd already demonstrated didn't bring out the best in him. I just found deranged behaviour, quite frankly.
It's like going back to an old girlfriend, isn't it, or something like that? You just don't do it. It's just not.
Yeah. Well, you do it, and it's an absolute house on fire, and not in a good way. It's like where's the ambulance? But we're looking at 18 managers. I think it might be 17 and 18 if this chump goes across, as I say, 23, 24, 25 years, whatever it's been. I don't think he knows what he's doing. And I wanted to answer one question here to try and send out the message. I don't think getting rid of Ange is a solution, but I think it places more pressure on Baldy, and that in its own way gives the act some gravitas, some weight. Because who comes in after thick Dundee? Who comes in? Who follows this guy?
Do you know what? He's really in last chance saloon, Levy is, because if he gets this wrong, and God forbid Ange led him into a relegation battle and his blue entity club was no longer a Premiership club with the revenues that attracts and the sponsorship, that big, shiny, game-changing stadium will be empty on match days. Plus, if he has been given so many opportunities to elevate the club to the next level, he's failed to take them. And if he gets this one wrong, I think it's curtains for him. It's these investment bankers he's commissioning to look at buyers, that value of 3.75 billion suddenly heads towards 2 billion. So he is going to feel the pains of his own miserable efforts through stitching his up.
It was interesting because during the game yesterday, I was watching a game with my wife, who's a Spurs supporter as well, and she literally said the same thing. She literally said, she said, I don't want this to happen. She said, but we need to get relegated. Because at the moment it's just not whatever. It's Groundhog Day. It's the same thing over and over again in cycle. We get another manager. We go through the same. It's almost like an old British farce. It just doesn't get any. It's funny. It's funny, and it's funny, and it's funny. But after a while, it doesn't. It becomes very predictable and not very funny. After a while, and. For any Spurs supporter to turn around and say, well, actually, I think we need to get relegated to send a message, to really make something happen, is really just shows you how desperate we're becoming and how detached from football reality Levy is. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that we even have to think that
way. I think you're right. And I point people towards traditional British sitcoms. And if you look at the old episodes of like Dad's Army, Ain't Half Hot Mum, Are You Being Served, the whole thing had been played out so many times that the effect of Mrs. Slocum referring to her pussy and all the rest of it had kind of gone. And the actors were just looking implausibly old, and they were making the plot lines even more far-fetched than ever you could have imagined. And I think this business with the share price and the commercial rating, because there's no two ways about it. People I've spoken to over the years, the object of the exercise was never to win the silverware. If that happened, it was fine, but that was always regarded as dangerous and potentially foolhardy. The object of the exercise was to get this triple, quadruple A rated entity that had a UEFA quality stadium that could then attract all the goodies and prizes and major assets that came with it. And his contempt, and there's no other word I would use, his utter contempt for the football is what will be his undoing. I don't think.
There's two defining moments for me as well. Is just after we lost in the Cup final.
Champions League.
It was in the Champions League Cup final. We were at a crossroads there. If we just pushed on recruitment wise, we could have been doing something. I know it's always about ifs and buts and what have you, but we were just on the cusp of potential greatness there, because we had a team that was going somewhere, a couple of extras, input, Poch was in a good place, and then Levy decides, oh great, that's a good time for us to start building a stadium, and we're not going to recruit anybody for 2 windows and what have you. And then sacking Mourinho on the week before the Carabao Cup final, which is just like,
what you're saying?
Are you? Sorry, it's like an act of self-sabotage almost. He wants to deliberately sabotage the team.
What you're talking about, Tony, is you're talking about what Liverpool did. They lost the Champions League final to Real Madrid, had Loris Karius in goal, had a nightmare. So what did they do? They immediately went out and signed Alisson Becker, the goalkeeper, and then they signed Virgil van Dijk. So 2 signings of immense quality lifted the whole football club, and that's what you're talking about. And yeah, we didn't do it, and we time and time again we get the easy decisions wrong.
I just think that there are arguments, there are opinions, but some of them aren't worth very much. And you look at the methodology behind this, and I keep bringing all the same stuff back up again and again and again. This was always going to be an NFL supporting and driven product. And the product, unfortunately, has still sat in the garage with just 2 games per season or 2 games per annum. If that was ever going to grow, I don't know anything, right? I don't know anything. But my gut feeling is that the NFL, if they feel like it, if he does anything else to annoy them, and I've said this 1,000 times, I had 2 sources that didn't know each other in the States, which is so rare these days, so rare to get 2 sources, and said to me that Levy had taken a shit on a table in the NFL. He went to New York and took a shit on the director's table, because he went there as the guy from the corner shop telling the people that owned a chain of Harrods stores across the world that he had solved all their problems, and they couldn't believe they'd been spoken to in such a condescending manner. It oozes out of his every single pore. And I'll tell you something, if you want to look at something to put onto Ange Postecoglou's gravestone, was I said yes to Dominic Solanke. Again, I don't know everything. Can't predict the future. But if you're telling me a 27-year-old burnout from Bournemouth is the answer for any Premier League manager that's in a bit of a stick right now, you're kidding. You're absolutely deranged out of your mind.
It goes back to what you were saying earlier, wasn't it, Chris? I think you were saying about the fact that all these signings we're making, the Madisons and the Solankes and the Johnsons, etc., nobody else was clamouring around for them. We weren't in bidding wars, and we weren't in wars to try and take them away from anybody. It's like everybody gone, yes, Spurs are having, because it's a Spursy thing to do.
Well, Gray, that wasn't a practice signing, was it? We only jumped in at the 11th hour because down the road Brentford were in talks with him. And then you look, no disrespect to the kid, and he is a kid, and he may come good. But I'm sitting there against Arsenal on Sunday thinking, we bought Odebear off the bench. The lad was in a relegated side at Burnley. If you go out and sign a world-class winger like a Chiesa, but then also sign an Odebear, so you've got your proven quality and one for the future to learn off and to get minutes in domestic cups and to come off the bench, then we're not upset about that. We can see the plan. But when he is the solution, you're thinking, Jesus Christ, you've got hardly any minutes to your name. You've scored minimal goals. You're taking a massive step up. And that's what it always is, a punt on what might be.
Perhaps it's me, but if you spend £40 million on a player, do you not think he should be starting? Or at least it's within that rotating, at least rotating.
Of course I do. And I tell you what,
it's
Tony,
just madness.
I tell you what, Tony, all those years I sat there and laughed at times at Newcastle when they were under the Mike Ashley regime. Well, all of a sudden it's gone 360 degrees, and I bet there's people pissing themselves about us under the Levy regime because it's not getting any better. There's no positives. People of our age group can see it, and we can say it, and we can honestly discuss it. It's all the little incels, the virgins, and the tweeters out there who like to see a rainbow on the horizon.
They like rainbows. They love
They're like,
rainbows.
they're like a false flag, a red flag, and they want something to be excited about.
Yeah.
What is there to be excited about at Tottenham Football Club at the moment? If we continue with the performances we have had in the first 4 games under this manager, we'll be in a relegation battle. And that's not me being dramatic or trying to boost your viewing figures or get some controversial comments. Our squad is shit. There are people who go, look at the amount of money Nottingham Forest has spent. Look at the ambition. Even Ipswich, who recently promoted, the amount of signings they made. We're on the bare bones. Romero will be gone next season. Van der Ven will be gone. Then what's going to happen to us?
I hear this thing about possession. We dominated the game. I don't care about possession. I couldn't care about it one shot. It means nothing. There was a game a few years back. It was Burnley versus Liverpool. Liverpool had 80% possession and lost 2-0, and that was away to Burnley. So that tells you all about possession. There's only one stat that matters. It's how many goals you score, as opposed to how many goals the opposition score.
But this is what they're selling. If you have the misfortune to watch like those monkeys that do the Spurs play thing, they sit there and I mean we saw the pre-season games against appalling opposition, and the guy stands there with a microphone, the cabbage guy with the grey beard, and goes, "Well, Ange, results not everything." You never ever say that to a top 5 manager,
aren't they?
Yeah, you live and die by your results. And then he'll say, well, we didn't get many boxes into the ball. So-and-so didn't get much service, but there was some lovely work in those early stages. And they replay it again. And this is aimed, and I keep on banging on about it because once your IQ hits 3 digits, kids, you'll begin to understand. They show a bit of link-up play and go, oh, that's exciting. Oh, yeah. But it doesn't lead to anything. That isn't a product. That's staring at a picture of a girl in a magazine, opposed to being in a room with one that hasn't got any clothes on. And these people don't understand the light years of difference. And I put it down, honestly, I put it down to the internet. There's people dating online, never seen each other before. Oh, I love you. Can you send me a picture of your bottom? And all the rest of it. And it's just detached from reality. And you wouldn't behave like that if you were face to face in a bar. And it's just nuts. It's just nuts. And they are applauding empty boxes. And if anybody's ever been to a market stall, the guy selling the empty boxes, he's not there the next day because the jig is up. Because you get your box home and the bottle of Chanel No. 5 or whatever it is you bought, it's got tap water in. And you can't get away with it. And this is the decreasing circle that I think you're right there, Chris, in respect of that this AAA, quadruple A, whatever it is, credit rating that he's engineered. And that's the one thing we have to give him credit for. He's an expert when it comes to leverage. They even borrowed the money to buy Tottenham HOTSPUR Football Club, which again, people don't
leverage debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Your average punter doesn't have any concept of this. So you have to give them the credit for what they've achieved there. But the reality is, beyond that, it's just mistake after mistake after blunder. And I'm worried.
What have they achieved? That's the whole point.
Zero. But you see, that's the new product. Instead of winning something, you went there and you had a splendid event. That you like. What did you do for your birthday? Well, I didn't really do anything, but I went up in a hot air balloon. What did you do for you? You had an experience. I remember that I think it was the 90s. They started selling those as for your birthday. You get an experience. So you didn't take anything home. There wasn't a physical product. Like you weren't holding up an FA Cup, for example. There was no product to take home. But you had the memories, and there's a picture your girlfriend took of you on the boat or wherever it was, or on the ski lift or whatever. And this is what, and I full credit to Levy for it. He's now selling football experiences. And you see the amount of Koreans in the crowd, and I don't mean anything disrespectful to them, but it's like going to a Japanese football game and seeing lots of English people in the crowd. What do they actually know about sumo wrestling? You know, this is just a different side of the same coin. And these people are going to an event, to an experience. And if it doesn't materialize something for a football crowd that we are part of, we constitute, then quite straightforwardly, won't win enough games and we'll get sucked down into a relegation thing. And this is, well, we come again full circle as to why the European Super League appealed to Daniel so much. Because at the time when they were talking about it, you weren't ever going to leave. You could just stay there forever. You might embarrass yourself, but you were still playing Bayern Munich next week. You might embarrass yourself, but you were still playing Inter Milan the following week. And he was happy to live with that. Because this side, we're not even in Europe at the moment. And we're not going to meet some particularly good sides in this Europa Cup. They've tried to, bill it as being this, that, and the other. But give me a break. Rangers and this other nonsense, stuffing, room filler, room meat of football clubs that are in there. But they're going to take lumps out of us in terms of the miles on the clock. It's like a car, every time you take it out, you put more miles on the clock. And we're going to have players like Maddison, Basuma, any of our midfield players, and it's going to just wear them down. And it's going to take value off of the business when we start to sink.
Well, at least you can say that if he's playing Rangers, Ange knows what they're about, won't he? Because that's about the level he's at, really, isn't he? Realistic.
Yeah, I mean, will they tactically outwit us? Because you see, the problem is, and I've banged on about this for a good while, because people have said about Conte, for example, well, you're on the big money, mate, you sort it out. It doesn't work like that. Football managers tend to come with almost like preset tactics. And there's very little variance they can bring to play. And it was only occasionally you get managers with, and dare I say it, the brilliance of Mourinho, who would say, no, I've completely screwed this up. I don't know how it's happened. That's why I made 3 changes on the 40th minute. And invariably, they would turn the game in one way or another. But most managers, they just have their set system, which they know for them it works. And Postecoglou certainly feels that it's worked for him. It's worked for him in Japan. It's worked for him in Scotland. But there's a big difference between winning, as I said, disparaging me, the Heroin Cup in bloody Glasgow, and there is between working your way through even the Carabao Cup in the UK. It's not going to happen for him.
You just said it. Japan, Scotland. It's like well, cool story, bro. Tell me something interesting.
Well, it just reminds me of that sketch. I probably did this last week. I can't remember, but it does echo so strongly with the Del Boys sketch at the market. And Rodney stood there in the ski suit, and he goes, "This is top of the range alpine ski wear." He said, "This is none of your foreign rubbish. This comes from the company that lead the world when it comes to snow outfits, Fiji." Nobody wants to buy a ski suit that's manufactured in Fiji. No disrespect to the good people of those islands, but you want to get it from somebody that has some involvement with the top end of the market in ski wear. And this business of I've always won in my second season, mate. Nobody gives a damn because we know where you were.
But the warnings were always there, weren't they? And the warning was that this was a 58-year-old guy who had never managed in the top 6 European leagues. So if he was that good, why weren't there people clambering for his contract earlier? And he was actually the 6th choice, in the management pursuit. So again, can you remember when who was the Italian madman that we were going to sign?
The nut job.
Yeah, the ex-AC Milan hard man. Gattuso, was it?
Yeah.
The
butcher of Napoli.
We had all that furore, and that went south. And then all our management pursuits have been terrible. But you think if Nuno Espirito Santo was playing the way that Ange plays at the moment, we'd have been frog marching him by the collar at the stadium, as the hate that man got. compared to this guy, he's angelical and he's loved, but I can't understand why he's loved. He's not achieved anything, but people.
Well, he won the first, won 8 out of 10 of the first games last season, which
Yeah.
everybody thinks, well, we're getting back to that. Well, you forget that after that,
we got
our
found
form
out
just
and we didn't.
we
Yeah,
got found out. Absolutely. And people are saying, oh, it's only 4 games into the season. No, it's not 4 games into the season. It's 24 games into the season, because it was the same last season, as when people found us out. And towards the end of the season, if we won a game, we were lucky, and it's not to do with the fact that, we played well. It was because we were beating teams like Everton, where frankly anybody could turn Everton over. Even Aston Villa managed to do it, albeit working a little bit hard at it, but they still managed to do it.
Yeah.
And it's a trend, and in the world we live in, football wise, you don't get very long to succeed. I don't agree with that to some extent, because I think sometimes you do need to develop, and you need to let a team grow, but you also need to have quality product for which you can grow from, and we don't have quality product in our team.
No, I don't.
Tottenham were an electrical appliance, I'd be hitting the factory reset button right now.
Yeah,
because the whole club.
The reset button.
Yeah,
well, you would,
is rotten, and it just needs a reset from top to bottom.
Well, you wouldn't. You'd be in the queue at Argos within 16 days. But where is this improvement going to come from? Maddison, I think he's actually peaked. I think he would have probably been better to have got a few years ago. Tactically, we've got the problem I highlighted earlier with Udogie and Porro. They're not traditional flat back left, flat back right players. They're being played out of position. Werner is past his sell-by date. Total junk. Sarr, promising. Bentancur, promising. But are they going to deliver in time to save us? I don't think they are. And that's with Sonny, who's past his best by a long shot.
Either of you, name me a midfielder who can get 6 to 8 league goals from our midfield.
Zero. Not everybody needs to be or is expected to be Frank Lampard.
No, we have to. Dele Alli. Even when we had Ali, he used to chip in with goals, didn't he?
Yeah.
And you look, if you take out Solanke and you take out Son, name somebody who can step up and score goals.
Well, I'll tell you where we are at this point. We're staring at Kulusevski, who is being lauded left, right, and centre by a lot of the fan base, when he's actually a mediocre player who does okay now and again, does a little bit better than mediocre. I don't dislike the man. I don't dislike him at all. I wish more would work for him, but I think tactically he's being straitjacketed. And I wonder if that's not where... Is it that we've got this, that people are happy to sort of say, oh, Maddison's still getting over that injury, he was out for a while, blah, blah, blah. This is the real world. And is he ever going to recover from this injury? Where is the form that Tony says that we had in those opening sort of 10 games where we saw something and got, okay, I get it. I understand what Ange ball might be. It's on the floor, no long balls, zip, 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 tippy tappy. But now everybody's battery cells look as if they're on the fade element of the cycle when they get to the outskirts of the penalty area. And it's all, as Tony has said, it's all Harry Winks.
All sideways and backwards.
Oh,
Nobody had the strength or the courage or commitment, did they? No.
Yeah. Also, you look at it's not just that. I mean, from if you're a Maddison, you're looking for the runs for which you can pass as well. It's not just about him making the passes. You've got to be making the runs to have the passes to make.
You want your wingers starting the run before you've played the ball. And that's when on Sunday I was like, Johnson, run. Get on your heels, go, as the ball's going to come over the top. No, he's standing near the centre, near the halfway line, waiting for the ball to come in, by which time his fullback and another covering defender have gone 2 up against him. And it was like running into a brick wall.
I thought tactically, another thing I was going to mention, it just popped into my head, was Gary Neville, who was particularly annoying because he's obviously decided that he wanted to back Arsenal. And it's rare for me to come out with sort of stuff like that, but he was very easy on them. But he pointed out that defensively, they really had got their act together. And the moment Spurs got any class of possession, and here we go again, this building from the back weirdness, they just immediately all slotted back into shop. So you had a line of 4 or 3 with 2 in front.
Yeah.
And suddenly they looked impenetrable, which we were the home side. There was no home advantage that I could perceive.
We could have played until 2028 and we wouldn't have scored. We were absolute drivel.
No,
I think somebody said yesterday, didn't they? They said with Johnson, we were playing with 10 men before we even got started.
Well, we've got a Korean tourist on the pitch as well. So does that put us down to 9?
I mean, he does look, honestly, Sonny does look as if his best years are behind him, and I don't know what to say, because it sounds like you're looking for a scapegoat.
Well,
But
no,
you
you've
just-
been truthful, aren't you? You've been honest.
But you just look at the quality of the performances, and we go back to this line about, oh, we need to improve. Explain that to me again. Tell me how I got that wrong when I said it's like talking to an employee and saying to the guy, this is a customer facing business, you're a scruff bag and you don't get on with people. He can't improve. He can't have a personality transplant. The surgeon who is leaving cadavers laid up in the operating theatre, he clearly doesn't have what it takes to operate on other human beings. This isn't about improvement. This is coded language for you need to go and work somewhere else. And
you need to have honest conversations with people. And equally, all of us on this show now, we've all dropped a bollock in the past, but we've learnt from it. But we've also done a bit of self-reflection, where we've thought, what makes me a better human being? What makes me better in the sports arena? What makes me better in the family environment? What makes me better in the workplace? And hopefully we've stood back, thought about it, and gone away and changed. But some of these, it's just week in, week out, the same old shite. And you think, are you so two-faced that you believe I'm a Premiership footballer? I've got 1.5 million followers on Insta. Everybody loves my tweets. I've made it. No, you haven't. You've won absolutely nothing during your time at Tottenham. Either shape up or get rid.
And just to go back with other stuff that's popped into my head, the behaviour of some of our lot yesterday.
Romero complaining about having to take his own flight back from South America.
Romero moaning about the fact that he had to pay for his own ticket. It must be an absolute living hell for people who are multimillionaires to do things that other adults do on a shoestring budget. And James Maddison hugging Arteta.
100%. What was that all about?
In broad daylight. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a Neanderthal. I don't want to see him walking up to him and giving him a right hook. But for goodness sakes, and we had Pedro Porro in the tunnel all over Raya, hugging and kissing and hey. But I mean, I hate to break it to you, but that's a really big piece of real estate, that building. They could have nipped off into a little quiet spot and done unmentionable things to each other without a camera being there. And they could have just pretended not to get on when they were stood in the lineup before they came out the tunnel. I wouldn't have minded that. I could have lived with that. I don't think that everything I see is true and absolute and pure. I could get on with it, but I don't want to see them hugging. That's just insane.
Lacking weak mentality, isn't it? They've not got the kill or be killed attitude. They're not embracing the ethics that some of these elite professional sportsmen, title winners.
Well, it's like seeing the Christian playing tummy tickles with the lion before they go out in the arena. Mate, what are you doing?
Don't realise the importance of that fixture to us, the fans, the North London derby. And then Ange said the same thing. I don't train any different to any other game. Well, that's a sign of your weakness as well, because if you know you're facing a side massively strong from set pieces, then you're going to be putting the hours in on the training ground to counter that. But the fact he says things like that also gets red flags flying.
Perhaps I'm old-fashioned, but one thing that also perhaps you may disagree, but winds me up is these huddles before you kick off.
Oh, nonsense!
Well, if you haven't got, excuse my friend, if you haven't got your shit sorted out in the dressing room, what the hell are you doing out on the pitch?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But it's always been a little bit like that at Spurs, and I always come out with it. But Stephen Carr was not a good footballer, but he used to wave and clap to the crowd, and he got a song out of that. A lot of Spurs fans, if they bumped into Stephen Carr in the street, would say, mate, take me in your arms. But he wasn't a very good footballer. That's not up for debate. He wasn't a very good footballer. But
I
there's
saw it.
something in the blood. There's something in the DNA, and I think it's something that Levy spotted, and along with his leverage expertise, he's really shined that up and turned that into an art form. And as I say, he's now selling experiences. He's not selling a vehicle that's going to take you to a cup final. He's not selling you something which is going to give you bragging rights with your next door neighbours. If anything, we've reached that point where supporting Tottenham has been character building, which is the ultimate cop out.
Tottenham's the mouthpiece for the investment vehicle, isn't it? And he's got no interest in this football club. He's interested in globalisation of the brand, property development.
The thing that it doesn't wind me up anymore, because it's there all the time. Is every time you go on other chat rooms or into Facebook or Twitter, wherever, it's the word Spursy. Now that in the last 25 years, that has become the adjective for failure, for implosion, for grasping defeat from the jaws of victory,
lacking bollocks, having no plan, being a complete laughing stock. There's another 3 words for it.
And all this, but everywhere you go is that was a bit Spursy, wasn't it? And it's just like that's what we've become.
Yeah. I mean, it's the sideshow Bob stepping on the rake meme is what Spursy is. Alexa, I better be careful. The house will catch fire. But Alexa, give me a definition of Spursy, and the sideshow Bob meme comes up, because that's what it is. Except for the rake we're standing on is worth £250,000 because it's the most expensive rake you can buy. I mean, Ange has gone through, and I use this term advisedly because it wasn't him. He's approving other people's picks.
440 million or something.
Yeah, he's gone through a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I don't think he understands or cares, perhaps more the latter, that with that comes responsibility, because it's on his shift. Now, we all know the truth, but there are people that, if you, as you say there, Tony, you go on Facebook or whatever, and you'll see somebody actually saying in broad daylight, somebody who's of an age, not a child, saying, "Yeah, well, that was the player that Mourinho brought in," and you're like, "Yeah, that's right, mate." Mourinho put his name on a folded up piece of paper and handed it to Daniel Levy very, very quietly in a sanctified manner. And Daniel Levy went off and wrote a check and got that boy in. No, it didn't happen, because that was the problem with Pochettino. And I heard from people at the club at the time, and they said it's not all Levy's fault. And what they meant when they were then nudged a little and felt forced to explain it was the fact that Poch had the audacity to turn around when he was offered his second choice, third choice, and fourth choice, and say, "No, it's not going to work. I need the first choice guy." And they then burdened him. They tagged him with the fact that he wasn't really playing ball. And that's when that Poch flipped and said, "You need to change my job description." And that's why he was part and parcel of it. Because I tell you something for nothing. Because if Ange's wish list has been this shower of guano, then this guy deserves to get sacked, and Spurs deserve to be in a relegation scrap as fast as possible. Because I can't see anybody in their right mind when you were saying there, Chris, about when you make a bungle at work. Sometimes it costs you a job, sometimes it costs the company money. There's levels of severity. But if you are able to look back at those situations and then learn something from it, even if it's just you personally. Are you near the airport, Chris?
I'm not, but I can see lots of planes flying overhead.
but if you're able to learn something from it, because I challenge Angelos to sit down with his missus or his mates down the Barbie and say, "So the gig at Spurs blew up. That was a disaster. What was the thinking behind Solanke?" I'm not pinning it all on this guy, because he's touched the ball 3 times or something, to the best of my knowledge so far. I'm not blaming him at all, but he's a championship grade striker. I don't think that's up for debate. We have his CV in front of us. But would a manager of a Premier League side, really, when he's looking for lifeboats, would he look for the one that's got Solanke in it?
But the manager would have probably got him in June after the season finished in May, not 2 weeks before the first game of the season. There's so much that doesn't make sense around that. talent acquisition and signing is just untrue. I tell you
Hey,
what,
but in Ange we trust, though, eh? In Ange we trust, which
Yeah,
is what they say on Facebook, isn't it? You know, it's just
not
like,
not
oh
off,
my God.
not off, great mate. So quickly round the table, because I think Chris probably has an appointment with an all-night tattooist doing go-go dancer and
We're gonna be
everlasting beer buffet.
putting some piss spewing on, and the man boobs are going to be coming out.
Right. Well, we better hit the end recording button.
Yeah,
So
lucky enough, it's commentary on Thursday, and I might do it live from the sunbed.
what are our thoughts on the next game, Tony?
Well, Coventry Wednesday night is a massive one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, suddenly it's become make or break, is it?
Yeah, huge.
Any thoughts, Tony? Anything score?
Yeah, I think for me, I think I agree with Chris. This has almost become a win or bust game, because if we don't, and also we've got to play good. And Coventry are no mugs. You know, let's be honest about that. They're in the Championship, and the Championship is we say the Premier League is the best league in the world. Debatable, but you know, let's go with that.
Yeah.
But the Championship is the hardest league in the world.
Yes.
You know,
it's a war. It's a war of attrition, isn't it?
100%. And Coventry are used to being in a war. We're not. We look like Pike, really, don't we? When we're in the war. You know, when he's walking up there at the end in the end credits, and he's walking with his gun, and he's looking a bit unsure of himself.
And his scarf. His scarf.
Yeah, his scarf.
Because his mum wants him to mind his chest.
That's right. Yeah, it's all like that reminds. When I think of that, I think of us against a team like Coventry. Who'll go there and they'll want to stick it on us big time.
Yeah, I'm going to predict that'll be a draw, and that's about as nasty as I can get.
Well,
and Chris,
stretch penalties then, doesn't it?
Oh no, really?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, straight penalties.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great opportunity.
Didn't we? We did that at Culture years back.
Yeah, I remember.
That's when we had Fraser Forster, the human tree, in a penalty shootout.
I actually took. If I'd have known he was coming, I would have given England's number one, Paul Robinson, a much less of a hard time, because as barrel rolls go, I think Fraser Forster out barrel rolled even Robbo. That was a shocking performance. So so I'm saying we'll go to penalties, which is a really slick way of avoiding giving you an answer.
We will scrape through 2-1, but then I think we'll get our asses handed to us against Brentford on Saturday, who have got some pace up front in Visser and Brian Mbuemo, and I think Thomas Frank's a sensible bloke, can set up his teams well. He will pick us up on the counter, and similar to when Wolves beat us that time 2-1 and Neto scored twice, I think we'll see the same fate with their forwards.
I agree. There's for me somebody like Frank would be. I know we're talking about replacements, and I'm going to talk about it now. But for me, someone like Frank wouldn't be a bad shout, because he knows the Premier League, he knows his players, and he sets up these teams really well. And to keep Brentford up and competitive as they have been, I think has been no small feat at all.
I think replacing Ange is going to be an extraordinary fiasco. You know, the idea that Levy's reputation doesn't precede him, and the idea that anybody looks at that and goes, "Oh, there's a great career opportunity." No, there's a great salary for 2 seasons. That's what that is.
Well, apparently we're releasing a load of people from prison early. Maybe one of them needs his job. Think outside of the box.
Actually, I think you've nailed it. I think giving a reoffender a 5th chance could be no worse than hiring the 6th choice manager.
I think only a psychopath would probably be able to work with Daniel Levy, wouldn't he? Or she?
Could this be a coincidence? Speaking of psychopaths, could Keir Starmer emerge as somebody who could, because he likes releasing people who've committed unspeakable acts and crimes. He has a real thing for them. He campaigns for them. Is he interested in football?
I suppose the extra revenue would help him fund his wife's clothes shopping requirements.
Well, it could also. It wouldn't be a bad thing for him, because let's face it, he could spend the next sort of 2 or 3 seasons, however long he lost, blaming the previous incumbent, couldn't he?
It would be wrong, though, would he?
Right, chaps, this has been wonderful. Sorry about the false start. I'll have a word with whoever's in charge.
Yeah, sack 'em.
Tony, great to see you. Great to
And
see
you guys, thank you.
again at some point, and I'll definitely meet you for a beer locally. That's 100%.
Sounds like a plan.
Chris, I can only feel so much for the people sharing the same hotel as you. I hope they all get out. I hope they all get out alive.
There we go. Whoa,
There we go.
There you go.
I just want to know
I'll
what's
get a
behind
great
those.
break, Chris.
I want
Yeah,
to
Chris,
know what's
Tony,
behind
yeah,
those What's behind those net curtains?
Behind curtain number 1.
Only the lucky will find out. But yeah, I think we need to debrief Coventry, as I think that could potentially be a Eric from Arcadia Avenue type banana skin.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
great.
it for now. Good luck and keep it Tottenham.